Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Football Endgame. Week 1 is here. Finally, the 2021 fantasy football season is ready to kick off. It's time to set lineups. You've drafted, you've put in the work and the research. So who do you start for that ever critical first game of the season? We're here to tell you which running backs we like and which are guys to sit for week 1 based on matchups and everything that we have spent time researching. So before we get to our starts and sits, don't forget, if you have a question that you want answered that we don't cover here, give us a comment right here on this channel. We answer every single comment on this channel. Or you can join our free Discord server. The link is in the description below. Talk Fantasy Football. And you can get your questions answered from a whole bunch of people in our community, not just us. So definitely join our Discord or leave a comment here or do both, better yet. All right, so here we go. Ready to get this season underway. So your first must start. Now, we're not going to talk about the obvious guys. Yeah, you're going to start CMC and Dalvin Cook and those top 10 running backs probably. So who's somebody else, Chris, that you really like that you think must start in week 1?
Yeah, this is a guy who was pretty much a must start every single week last year. Then it looked like he lost his job, and now he has a job back, and that's James Robinson of the Jaguars. We know all about Travis Etienne now with the foot injury, the surgery, out for the year. So we're basically looking at James Robinson and whatever Carlos Hyde has left. And he's got a great week 1 matchup going against the Houston Texans, who might very well likely will be the worst team in the league. And this is going to be one of the few weeks the Jaguars are actually going to be favored this year. Yes, that's right. The Jaguars are favorites this week. That's how bad the Texans are. We know this run defense is terrible. They can't stop the run. They can't really stop the pass either, but you got to feel great. If you drafted James Robinson either before or after the Etienne injury, got to feel great about him heading into week 1 against this Texans defense, one of the worst run defenses in the league. Start him up as a high upside RB2, might even give you an RB1 week this week.
Yeah, I don't even think there's any might about it. I would be surprised if the Texans win more than one game this season. Honestly, they're that bad. You could probably start all Jags against them this week. Now, on the other side of the coin here, this looks like a terrible matchup. Going against the Chiefs is generally not a good thing, especially when it's on the road. So Cleveland gets the honor of facing Kansas City in week 1. Well, generally that's not good for a running back because, you fall behind quickly. You want to catch up. You kind of abandon the running game, but not when it's a pass catching back, and that's Kareem Hunt. And so I'm not saying don't start Nick Chubb because I probably still would start Nick Chubb also. But Kareem Hunt in this case, he's the guy that's going to get the pass catching work. He's pretty much an RB2 each and every week, despite being, I guess, technically behind Nick Chubb. But in this matchup, the game script might favor him. Don't forget a little extra motivation, of course, the former Chief. He's very familiar with Arrowhead, so there'll be no issues there. I do think that Kareem Hunt is a guy who's going to get plenty of touches, and so I wouldn't be worried about the matchup here. Even though on paper you think it's not necessarily the best for a running back in this case, it actually might be better to go with Hub, even over Hunt. You might even want to favor Hunt over Chubb if you happen to be in the position to make that decision. But I think don't get scared away of Hunt this week. I'm starting him no matter what. All right, who else you got, Chris? Who's your next must-start running back?
It's another kind of forgotten running back because of a rookie, and that's Raheem Mostert of the 49ers. I know everybody's really excited about Trey Sermon. I'm excited about Trey Sermon. You're excited about Trey Sermon. But don't forget about Raheem Mostert. He's still technically the number 1 guy there, at least as far as we know, right? He only played 1 preseason game, and when he did, he played 10 straight snaps, and then he came out of the game. I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Raheem Mostert. And oh, by the way, they're playing the Detroit Lions, another terrible defense. The Lions, much like the Texans, are going to be a defense this year that you're just going to want to play as many players against as you can. So if you drafted Raheem Mostert, as your RB2, RB3, and you're not confident about the RB2 you have, just put Raheem Mostert in there. I think he's primed for a big game this week. We know this guy on any play can hit a home run, can take any play to the house, can just save his fantasy day on one play. And in this 49ers offense, this running scheme, tons of upside. So love Raheem Mostert this week against the Lions.
Another great matchup you definitely want to take advantage of. I like Sermon a little better than Mostert as far as draft rankings go, but that's more second half. Look, early on, I do agree Mostert's going to get most of the work. So I'm definitely on Team Mostert this week. I'm also on team Gus the Bus because, well, he's the lead runner in Baltimore, one of the run heaviest teams in the league. And so Tyson Williams is the RB2, definitely a guy to keep an eye on, either on waivers or if you're doing a late draft. But he's not proven. We don't know what he's going to give us yet. And we know he's probably not going to get a ton of touches initially. He's going to have to kind of earn his stripes. Gus Edwards will get plenty of work going against the Raiders. It's an okay matchup on paper. Raiders were just kind of middle of the pack run defense, but for a lot of last year, they're actually one of the worst run defenses. They kind of tightened things up towards the end of the year, but really that front four is just not really that improved. You know, a lot of guys who kind of turn out to be draft busts on that defense. Not anything to worry about. Gus is going to get plenty of volume. Ravens are going to rely on him. I think we could see upwards of 20 touches from him. Good chance that he scores. So if you drafted Gus the Bus, you will probably be thankful this week. It's definitely a matchup you want to roll with him. All right, Chris, one more must start at running back.
Yeah, my final must start is Myles Gaskin of your Dolphins. I know there were some concerns in the preseason that, you know, maybe Malcolm Brown and Myles Gaskin would be splitting. Maybe this would be a full-on committee, even with Salvon Ahmed factored in. But we saw in that second preseason game when the Dolphins really played their starters and really showed their hands, it was Myles Gaskin getting all the work. And not only that, he got the goal line carry and even scored on a goal line carry. So I'm not worried about Malcolm Brown. Yeah, Malcolm Brown will have a role. He might vulture some touchdowns. Definitely not worried about Ahmed. I think Gaskin's going to, mainly be the guy here, going to be involved in the passing game. The whole Miami Dolphins offense should be much better. You know that better than anybody else probably. And you look at the matchup against New England, you think, ooh, New England, tough defense. Well, they're good against the pass, but they're not really that great against the run. I think Myles Gaskin is going to have some big gains in this one. He's going to get some work done in the passing game. I think he's going to be a solid to high-end RB2 this week. So don't be nervous about what happened in preseason or any of the reports you're hearing about this running back or that running back. You can trust Myles Gaskin in week one.
A lot of misinformation about the Dolphins offense these days. Look, Gaskin's the guy. I don't think Malcolm Brown will do what he did the last 2 years and have this monster week one. That was with a different team in the Rams. So, Brown, he could vulture touchdowns, but is not somebody who you should really worry about. If you drafted Gaskin, it's probably as low-end RB2. You got to keep him in your lineup. Same thing with Mike Davis, kind of being drafted around that same range, kind of a fringy RB2, someone who seems to be the starter. We just don't know how many touches he'll get. It seems like a lot because Atlanta pretty much got rid of every running back other than Mike Davis in the preseason, and then they added Wayne Gallman. Well, Wayne Gallman's been with the team just a couple of days. It's going to take him a little time to acclimate to things. He's a veteran, but still, it looks like they're just riding with Davis. He might get a lot more work than we even thought, and this guy who does have the ability to catch the ball, so definitely a PPR asset, somebody they should roll with because if the Falcons trust him, he's going to get goal line touches, receptions, carries. And this is not a matchup that you should be too scared of. They're not going to be behind, we don't think, against Philly big. So, Davis looks like he's got a lot of promise this week. All right, so those are the guys we like. Let's go now to the sits. These are some players that, again, unless you really have no better option, which hopefully you do, you want to keep these guys on your bench. So, Chris, you're first up.
I'm going to cheat and I'm going to pick two running backs, and I'm saying the Buffalo Bills running backs should not be started in any capacity this week. First of all, we don't even know how this is going to go. It looks like in preseason, we may see these guys rotating series. So we might see Devin Singletary for a series and then Zack for a series and back and forth, kind of like that. Even with that unknown out of the way, this is one of the toughest defenses they could be playing this week, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's easy to forget that early in the year last year, this Steelers defense was one of the best run-stopping units in the NFL. They're healthy. They should be great again this year. I just don't see how you can trust Singletary or Zack Moss in your lineup this week. A, not knowing what kind of workload and volume they're going to see, and B, against such a tough defense. I think we're just going to see Josh Allen throw the ball, 60 to 70% of the time in this game, and the running backs really won't be involved much at all. So for me, not trusting either of these guys in week one.
For a second, I thought you were going to say we're going to see Allen throw the ball 60, 70 times, which would be impressive. That would be a shootout I'd love to watch. But yeah, you're definitely staying on brand there. You've been saying all offseason, just avoid the Bills running backs, and I'm definitely in agreement there. I'm going to go completely off brand here. I love Javonte Williams. I've been drafting him in a ton of places, But on all those leagues, I'm not really starting him a lot of places in week 1 because, well, he's a rookie. We don't know how much he'll touch the ball in week 1. And Melvin Gordon's still there. Melvin Gordon's healthy. He's going to be the lead back. Hate to tell you. But that's probably what's going to happen. Going against the Giants, again, that's not a scary team, but they have actually a pretty solid front there. Defensively, that's not their weakness, right? It is their defense. So I do think this is going to be kind of a lower scoring game. I don't see the Broncos being able to run the ball, 25, 30 plus times. And I think Gordon gets most of the carries. So I love Javonte Williams' upside, but I don't love it in week 1. I just think it's a little too risky. I'd rather have one of those other guys we talked about a little bit earlier. So I'm actually staying off of him for the most part. All right, Chris, one more guy that you feel you must sit if you have him on your roster.
Well, this is very on brand, and it's Josh Jacobs. So there's a couple problems for Josh Jacobs this week, and one's going to be a problem all year, and that's the fact that if you go back and look at his fantasy game logs, he's completely touchdown dependent, right? He's not going to catch you any passes. So in the games where he scores a touchdown, you're going to feel good when you start him. In the games when he doesn't, you're going to wish you'd started somebody else. And this is going to be one of those games because, A, it's Baltimore. I talked about the Steelers' run defense. The Baltimore run defense is probably even better. So you can't count on this guy to give you 100 yards, 120 yards, 150 yards. That's not going to happen this week. We're probably looking at 40 to 50 yards more than likely. And now you're saying, well, maybe he can score a touchdown. Okay, maybe he can. But he's got Kenyon Drake there, who had 10 touchdowns last year. They just went out and signed Peyton Barber. And whatever you think of Peyton Barber, he's a plotter. He's not very good. He will vulture touchdowns. That's what he does. That's his role. He's like Malcolm Brown, right? He's a big, bruising back that you love to use around the goal line. So it's hard to see or predict that Josh Jacobs is for sure going to score a touchdown this week. I think this is going to be one of those weeks where he has a sub 10-point game, which he does very often throughout the season, whether you want to believe it or not. I know you probably drafted him as your RB2. You might not have better options, but if you have anybody better on your bench, I would start him over Josh Jacobs this week.
Yeah, Jacobs definitely got by on volume last year. Had a ton of it with Drake and now even Barber there. It's just not going to be the same. So definitely agree with you on that. And then speaking of volume, I think James Conner, new place. Maybe he'll be the guy there, but we have to see. He's going to be dependent on volume too as far as carries. He's not going to be the pass catcher. And so he's just a very low floor, maybe non-existent even, because Chase Edmonds is still there. He's the guy we know is the third down back. So if game script goes poorly for Arizona, Conner could be taken out. And, Tennessee, again, not that it's such a great defense necessarily, but I feel like this is a team that is kind of matchup where at home, Tennessee could get up on them and it could force Arizona's hand, and they tend to get pass happy at times too. So Conner, yeah, I don't think he's a terrible play this week, but again, I want to wait and see how he's used in this offense. I want to see how productive he is after their disappointing season in 2020. I'm going to back off of him. This is a guy who I do think is going to be a little bit volume and touchdown dependent as well, kind of like Jacobs was last year, except he's not going to get nearly that kind of volume. So I'm waiting on Conner if I hold him. I prefer him as an RB3 desperation flex type for the time being. All right. So if you have any questions about guys that you want answered we didn't talk about here, again, hit us up with a comment on this channel. We'll get to your question for sure. And then check out the Discord and the link below. Good luck in week 1.